What does this mean if we have less than 1% of drivers that can't speak in English and can't communicate?
No.
It's a tiny fraction of the overall drivers. It'd be certainly less than 1% that cannot speak English. But if we were to say, what if it was 20% of drivers could not speak English? How crazy would that be for our country if 1 in 5 couldn't speak English? And then I say, now take that idea of 1 in 5 drivers not being able to speak English and say, that's the equipment.
Yeah.
The equipment is 1 in 5 of the actual things that move the stuff is not safe. Would you change your behavior? And they're like, I didn't think of it that way. And like, I understand. That's why I get so animated about this, because I remember speaking to an FMCSA commissioner at an IANA meeting a couple years ago. And I said, what is your belief on the vehicle maintenance? Because the 20% out of service is the standard for over a decade. And he said, we believe that accidents happen because of driver behavior. And we believe that vehicle maintenance is not a predictor of crashes and fatalities. And whatever their belief is, I don't care. The reality is, if we're not maintaining the equipment properly, then we are having unsafe roads. And if we can't meet the threshold of having things maintained properly, either remove the thresholds or accept that we are in a position where 1 in 5 is unsafe at any speed. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Driving down the road with your kids in the car, looking, how many trucks do you see? 1 in 5? That's wild.
I mean, we all want to get home in the same condition that we left. Like, that's the goal. Safely delivering freight on time and undamaged is difficult even in the best circumstances. And yet it remains the 8th most dangerous job in the country of driving a truck. The vehicle maintenance is terrible. The insurance rates are underinsured. And we act like this is like, we're going to focus on ELP. And that's fine. Focus on whatever you're going to focus on. Just make sure there's resources to enforce all of the regulations, because a light that's missing or a tire that's too bald is an out-of-service violation. You have to stop.
Right. I mean, how many times have you? I mean, I've been on the road where a tire has straight up flown off and has been like whipping at my car, and you're having to figure things. I mean, as an average, I mean, I think that even happened to me when I was like early 20s. I'm not a well enough driver to even understand how to even navigate that. And a lot of that stuff is simply, doing a pre-check, doing simple things to make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been a truck driver. Like, I don't know what it's really like, but to me, it's like before I leave, I make sure my car's fine. So.
A wheel runoff is the most terrifying thing in supply chain. When a tire comes off of a trailer or a truck and it's rolling down the street, that is a death. Like, if it hits a car, you are dead. You are not going to come home from that accident. And I've dealt with these cases. Like, I've dealt with those cases. And you deal with the victims and what has happened. And you try to find a way to help them be made whole. And that's why the verdicts are so high, because you get in front of a jury and say, this little kid would have come home if they had just done the inspection before they got behind the wheel. But I'll give you a quick example of like what it was like before and what it's like now. If you were in the pre-deregulation days, Danielle, and you were a driver, 80% of them were 80% were Teamsters or unionized drivers. They were all W-2s, but most of them were Teamsters. Most of them were unionized. And if you were told to get in the truck and drive, and you said, I don't think that truck is safe, and your manager, your dispatcher says, get behind that wheel, you have a grievance you are filing that day, and that manager may lose their job for trying to get you behind the wheel. If you do that today in some fleets, say, I'm not going to drive, it's unsafe, you lose your job, you're fired, because it is different than it was back then. So we have made it very difficult for truckers, and it's kind of a feature, not a bug of the supply chain.